Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Texas Outlaw Running Talk Show. This is your host, Briston Rains, and today we have Jesse Ellis on. I believe he's from Arizona, and he's with Let's Wonder Photography. That's his photography company. He's an ultra trail runner. He's a husband, father, and he has his own race photography business. And so he has shot things for Western states and just any big name race you could think of in the United States. He's probably shot it, and I'm really excited to have him on the show. He has an amazing story, and I feel like all of you listening are going to get a lot of value out of what he has to say. Before we start the show, I do want to mention we have a Patreon, and what the Patreon does is it allows listeners like you to support the show and keep it running, and all Patreon donations, they go right back into the show to making it better and making it a better quality overall. And so if you guys want to donate to the Patreon, the link is below. That's enough of that. Here's your show.
Hey, yeah, so Briston and I met via Instagram, Facebook. I was headhunting trail events around the country and came across this awesome outlaw company doing fun things in Texas and Arkansas. And I reached out to him to see if he wanted me to photograph some events. And come to find out, we have a lot of things that we relate to in our personal life. And so, yeah, just brothers in spirit right away. And it's, yeah, and here we are.
Yeah. Whenever you reached out, I was honestly really excited because I saw the platform you had with Let's Wonder Photography and the stuff you would shoot. And so I was honestly honored whenever you reached out to shoot some Texas Outlaw races. And so that was pretty cool. But yeah, like whenever I was looking into a lot of your work, like you have some of the best trail running photography that I've seen. And I'm sure that's why, Western States has been hiring you for shooting their races and everything. And how did you get into photography and trail running? Tell us the story a little bit about how you got to the point to where you are now.
Yeah, it's I grew up in Auburn, California, where Western States finishes, and I've known about ultra running since birth, basically.
Yeah.
And I grew up with a legend in the sports, kids, and so I was an ultra runner before I became a race photographer, actually. So in 2013, 2014, I started my race career and in ultra running, and had the ambition to qualify for Western States.
Yeah.
My photography career started actually as a second shooter with my wife, shooting weddings, and we in 2013 we had our first kid, and that's kind of what led me to pursuing ultra running, because I was like, you know what, it's always been in the back of my mind, and so I gave that a go.
Yeah.
Then in 2015 we had our second kid.
Well,
And so we were just busy with having one kid and then one on the way. And so I told my wife, I was like, you know what, we got all this gear sitting around, you mind if I go try and photograph trail races? And so that led to me, that's what led me to shooting races. I shot two for free for two race companies down in the Bay Area in California, and one of the race directors hired me on the spot for all 17 races in his series. And I did the arts and barista move to start. I was a mental health worker prior.
Okay.
And
yeah.
so just kind of jumped into shooting events and doing the coffee thing. So yeah.
Who was it that hired you to shoot all those races?
Inside Trail Races.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are they based out of? Are they still a thing, or?
Yeah, they're still a thing.
Yeah.
They're based out of the Bay Area.
Okay.
And they have, I think they have about 15 events right now, but that's because they're kind of recovering all their partnerships with parks departments from the years past, post-pandemic. Yeah.
So did you ever end up, you said you had a goal of qualifying for Western States. Did you ever end up getting to Western States?
I have not ran Western States
No.
myself. I've paced it twice. prior to shooting,
Yeah.
and then but I have qualified once, and I missed a qualifier by 10 minutes one time. uh, got the finishing time but not the qualifying for Western States time.
Yeah.
So
And
I've ran Javelina and Black Canyon, and I've attempted several other 100Ks.
yeah.
And so it's kind of been a struggle bus, actually. Something about the 100K to 100-mile distance has
Yeah.
really been it's hard.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's really cool to see a ultra runner that also does photography. And so like in a way, a lot of the aspects of your life are involved in the trail running community. Like my guy, Josh, you know Josh.
Mhm,
I think y'all have spoken, and he's not necessarily a trail or ultra runner. Um, but it's unique to see someone who's out there running, but also out there shooting on just at different races on different occasions.
for sure.
So, yeah,
Yeah, there's I when I look at over the past, so I've been shooting for 8 years now, ultras,
yeah,
and it's interesting. I feel like I'm the young pup in the industry because I do know some people that have been out there for 15 to 20 years doing this.
yeah,
And it's interesting to see that flow. Yeah, there's photographers for sure. You can always, everybody knows a photographer, as it's one of those kind of jobs that everybody knows somebody, and you can get somebody that comes out and shoots your events. But to capture the essence of it, I think it takes knowing what they're going through.
yeah. And you mentioned earlier that you shot with who was it? He's a guy that I've heard before. I think his last name's Stern.
Howie Stern, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
Howie's known for several awesome events.
yeah,
He lives in Colorado now, but was from Mammoth Lakes, California, and he's ran Hard Rock and Angeles Crest several times.
yeah,
He has 10 finishes at both events, and so he's really well known as a runner as well as a photographer. And he shoots Hard Rock, Barkley Marathon, things like that, Javelina, Black Canyon, and I think he was just out at Run Rabbit with another great photographer named Paul Nelson. In the I work pretty closely with both those guys
yeah,
at these big events.
yeah. That's sweet, man. Yeah, I've seen a lot of his stuff really be popular with Ultra Running Magazine, Trail Runner Magazine. A lot of his photography is just featured quite a bit, along
Yeah.
with yours as well. And so, what were y'all doing together? Were y'all collaborating on a shoot, or what were y'all doing?
So I help Howie Stern with Black Canyon Javelina
Okay.
specifically because I live down here in Phoenix,
Yeah,
and so he comes into town, and I'll help him with the on-course photography. Howie is really well known for kind of catching the essence of the suffering in
yeah,
events. He gets in people's faces in
yeah,
the
oh
aid
yeah,
station, and just captures like the low points as well as the high points.
yeah,
And I'd say my specialty is a little bit more on trail, a little bit more of the scene, featuring the trails and the beauty that we enjoy when we're out there.
yeah,
Uh, and so that's kind of been what, yeah, that's kind of, so we play well to each other's strengths, because I do one aspect of the whole picture, and then he does a whole nother.
sweet. Yeah,
But I believe we met at Western States a few years back.
oh okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. One thing I want to know is like I mean you've been out on the trails for a while, especially shooting events. What's one of like the most wild moments that you've had while shooting an event? Like whether it's something a runner did or an animal, is there anything that really
Oh yeah.
sticks out?
Wild moments. Yeah, I mean, the classic one is like, have you ever seen anybody trip? It's like, okay, yes, I've seen people trip. Um, and that's just, I've been out there long enough, and
Yeah.
there's always a tripping hazard on a trail race.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, wild moments. Um, there's some featured moments, I'd say, that you experience out at a race, and you see something and you're just like, man, that's wild. Or I'm always amazed at what an elite runner will do to finish. And by far the most grit I've ever seen out of anything would be Kyle Pietari at Western States. And he ran, I want to say it was like 60 miles on a rolled ankle. And when he
Wow.
finished, his ankle was just like a softball size.
Wow.
And he also just classically pushes to the point where he throws up at the finish line. Yeah, eventually, they always just
Yeah.
got to have the bucket ready for Kyle.
Yeah.
Um, I think that that just it's something that was just in my face and that I saw that really stood out to me as far as like the grit that's involved in finishing those races, especially at those high performance levels where you're top 10 at a major race.
Yeah.
Uh, they really gutted out. I also, when Jim Walmsley got lost his first year at Western States, I'm driving down out of Forest Hill, and another photographer called me and was like, "Hey, where are you at?" And I was like, "Well, I'm on my way into Auburn, gonna head to the track." It's like, Jim Walmsley got lost, and he's down on the quarry road. And so I took a shortcut down into the
Yeah.
canyon, and I managed to park the car really fast at the Highway 49 crossing
Yeah.
and hike down the trail. And I met him when he rejoined the trail. And as I was hiking down, I was just counting all the people that were passing me going up the hill. And when he rejoined the trail, he was in sixth place, and he finished in 20th because he just walked it in.
Yeah.
But our 2 mile hike up to the aid station alone was a pretty special moment for me because I got to just hear him talk through where his headspace was,
Yeah.
and our friendship just kind of grew off of that. And so it's pretty cool, just
Yeah. What kind of stuff was he telling you during that walk?
just that he's out of water,
Yeah.
initially. They kind of go through your hierarchy of needs, like I don't have food and water,
Yeah.
you know I don't have any, I just can't go anymore, I'm physically can't run, and you can just see he's just depleted.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna finish, but it's like I just need to get to my crew. And so when we crossed the road, he hugged his pacer, James Bonet,
Yeah.
uh, who lives here down in Phoenix, and so good friends with him as well. And they embrace in the middle of the road. So cars are stopped, and like there's like flashing lights because there's like a bus and everything, and it's just at dusk. And they embrace and hug, and I caught like one tear coming out of Jim's eye.
Yeah.
And it
That's awesome.
was like that was the emotional release of everything that was going on. And then he just walked the last 10 kilometers in
Yeah.
and still finished sub 18 walking it
Wow.
in for 10 kilometers. It's just insane.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that was a pretty wild moment. I remember when that happened and the media went crazy about Jim Walmsley not he getting lost. And I think they even made a documentary about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that was definitely a unique moment. That's cool that you were a part of that. And as I was looking, I noticed on Instagram you were like on a track with Courtney DeWalter or something. I don't know what you were.
yeah.
What
So
was that?
Desert Solstice is another major event where
Yeah.
records are broken here in Arizona. And so I remember racing against her. I mean, if you want to call it that, at I was actually in the 12-hour and she was in the 24-hour, and it was her first 12-hour or first 24-hour event, I believe.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And it was in California, like in 2014. It's kind of surreal to look back on and go like, oh, before I even knew who some of these people were, I was like at events with them. And yeah,
Yeah.
but Desert Solstice is a major event that Aravaipa hosts here in Arizona, and it's an invite only 24-hour track event, and it's just strictly to show up and break records.
That's
It's
awesome.
held the second week in December, and it's cooler temperatures for here,
Yeah.
which makes it just prime weather for racing. Today's a very special day in history because a Lithuanian broke the 24-hour record in 192 miles. And
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. Which was set last year by um, Nick Corey, Jameel Corey's brother,
Yeah,
here at Desert Solstice last year with 186 miles. So it's a very interesting time we're in as far as records falling and
yeah,
just incredible performances on certain trails. And it's been an honor to like be right there in the middle of all that. And Courtney is definitely a standout athlete.
yeah,
Um, and it's going to be awesome to see how long she can hold it. And Jim also even says it himself. He's like, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to sustain what I'm doing, but while it's happening, I'm just going for it.
yeah, yeah. You mentioned earlier on the show, going back to like Western States with Jim, that you were shooting the qualifiers for Western States. You want to tell us a little bit about that and what that looks like?
Yeah, yeah. So in 2022, I've really ramped up my reach into different states and to different companies.
Yeah,
And this year I was honored to take part in photographing 12 of the qualifiers for Western States.
yeah,
And between working with Howie Stern at Javelin and Black Canyon and also working with Tejas Trails at Bandera, I also managed to photograph 3 of the golden ticket races.
yeah,
Um, and some other things that I kind of pride myself on within that is I've also taken over Lake Sonoma as a client, which used to be
yeah,
a golden ticket race. And and then also I've also taken over shooting Kira Henninger's races down in Southern California, which she used to host golden ticket races as well. So I've managed to move myself into kind of the old school market of races that were a big deal, especially in association with Western States from the past years. And
yeah,
I've also managed to partner up with some amazing companies that just host banger races. And yeah,
yeah.
it's
That's
been exciting. I just got done shooting Pine to Palm, which is hosted by Hal Corner in Rogue Valley in Southern Oregon.
yeah,
An amazing point-to-point course. And the dropout rate was 59% this year. And that, you can look at that and you can go, oh, I never show up. Or you can be hardcore and be like, that's means it's tough.
yeah,
It was real. It was a tough course. It was a perfect day, to be honest. Maybe a little bit of smoke in the air might have made some people have some breathing trouble, but
yeah,
for the most part, it was just gorgeous, perfect day. Second day, it was like cloud cover the whole day, and with light breeze. I mean, you can't really ask for much better as far as that. But the course just must be brutal. There's a lot of fire road out there. Um, Mixed in with some single track. I think you're on the PCT for close to the last 8 miles. Um, and it's just gorgeous out there. The the one that really shocked me as far as just a gorgeous course, if anyone's and it sells out right away pretty much when it opens up, is Waldo 100K
yeah,
it's smack dab in the middle of Oregon. 90% single track. They literally walk right past 6 lakes that you can get in. They even have a wet Waldo challenge where if you get in all the lakes, you get some extra swag at the finish.
yeah.
Uh,
He race directs the Western States 100, right?
yeah, yeah. The race director is Craig Thornley, who's the race director for Western
Yeah,
States. Um, he, I don't know, he just kind of, he almost like downplayed it. It's like, yeah, it's a good course, and I come out like blown
yeah,
away. Um,
yeah,
and and you'd say like, how do you know like how gorgeous the course is? When I'm out there, I don't just hang out at an aid station, kind of wait for people to roll in, or just go like 100 yards out. I try and get to where it's the most beautiful. So I asked race directors like, where should I be?
yeah,
And it's like, no. I'm not asking like how do I access the trail? Like where should I be? Should I be 5 miles between aid stations? Like where is the spot? And you got to get out there and you got to get deep in there to really showcase why we do what we do. And I have a huge appreciation, not just for my photography, but like photography in general with races, because that's what makes me want to be out there. And the awesome part is there's some really great photographers in the Midwest and out east. And I'm always like, it's so flat out there. Then they show some of these show some photos on Instagram. You're just like, whoa, hold
Yeah.
on, that's different, but it's good. It's technical. There's at least trees. I live in Arizona, so I appreciate a good tree.
Yeah.
Um, and so it really gets me fired up. Just the fact that these courses are just so stunning, and I get to get my hiking in. And now it's like every time I go to a race, that because I've been doing it for 8 years, there's somebody that knows me, and that also is always encouraging, not just for me, but apparently for them, because then they're like, oh my gosh, I was in such a low point. It was so good to see you, 3 miles between aid stations, because I
Yeah.
was ready to quit at the next one, but you got me fired up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just, we all just want a good boost in life. I don't care if you're an ultra runner or not. You need those people in your corner that are praising you for the hard work that you're doing.
Yeah. What's the toughest race you've had to shoot? You talked about you have to hike in, and
Um,
it's one of the toughest ones you.
Probably see. Well, next week I'm shooting Mount Lake's 100 miler. That's up near Mount Hood in Oregon.
Yeah.
And last year was probably the toughest shoot I've had to shoot, but it was because of weather.
Okay.
It rained 60% of the race,
Oh.
and it rained right when you didn't want it to.
Yeah.
It would rain, and then the wind would kick in, and then it would rain, and then it'd go into night, and then and
Yeah.
so every single time I'd get wet, it seemed like something made it harder. And I really try to spend as much time out there capturing moments, because you never know what you're going to miss.
Yeah.
And overnight, the easiest way for me to photograph would be in aid stations,
Yeah.
especially if they have some kind of light.
Yep.
And that's why those, like, you see these classic like night shots of people just trashed in aid stations, and it's because that's the only place we really can shoot, unless we're doing flash photography on them or we have a continuous light.
Yeah.
But usually out in the wilderness, it's obvious that you're making something unnatural out of it. So
Yeah.
I try not to blind runners.
We had
But
an incident with that actually.
yeah,
A photographer guy, which he didn't know. It was his first time shooting a night race, and he went out there on the trail, and he got some good shots. But he said he learned that he was like, some people were like, "Oh, you're blinding me," and as soon as someone said something, he shot a couple people, like 4 people, and then as soon as someone said something, he like realized that he was blinding people, and so he stopped. But yeah,
yeah,
that was an issue we ran into one time. So we learned our lessons though.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's there's ways you can do things around that, but
Yeah.
overall what I found is the night shots aren't what sell, because it doesn't really, unless you can like somehow put light on something that is cool in the background. What we really seem to like about trail race photography is what's going on in the whole scene.
Yeah.
Unless somebody just looks epic,
Yeah.
or it's a person of interest. If it's a shot of Killian Jornet, like, we don't care if it's just his head. It's like we're excited because it's,
It's
oh my
killing.
gosh, there's another photo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome, man.
But
So
yeah, I'd say that whenever it rains and there's wind, those have
yeah.
been my hardest events to shoot. And Marin Ultra Challenge, it's either crazy hot or it's freezing cold. And so I've gotten pneumonia at that before,
Wow.
shooting the race. Um, there's a bunch of stuff I've shot in the Bay Area where I've had rain, but then it'll be kind of in canopy. So it's just like every once in a while, a big heavy water drop will come off a tree and like hit me in the shoulder.
Yeah.
That I don't mind. But if it's like I'm just trying to protect the gear and keep it dry and keep myself dry so I don't freeze, that's what makes a race extremely hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about like within your running career, what race that you have ran stands out the most to you? Like what race brought you the most gratification from completing it? Because you've ran a lot of races for a while now.
completing I would say running my first 100 miler and completing it, because it was also a redemption. I attempted Javelina
Okay.
100 in 2014 on the
Yeah.
old course, and I made it 45 miles. And then I came back in 2017, got a coach, moved here, was training in the area, and this is a pretty wild story as far as personal experience. And this is the other thing: you don't know what it takes for somebody to get to the start line, just
Yeah.
to get to the start line. But in 2017, I ran Javelina, which is in late October, and the month of September, my coach had me run 300 miles.
Wow.
And on September 26th in 2017, I went to the hospital and had an emergency surgery to remove my gallbladder.
Oh.
And I was like literally dying as I was going to the hospital. My gallbladder was necrotic, meaning it was completely dead.
Yeah.
Um, and I was turning gangrene when I was walking into triage.
Yeah.
And it
What
took them
caused that?
24 hours to get my fever down from 104. And then they removed it. And because my body, my physique, my everything was
Yeah.
in prime, I was able to leave the hospital like 2 or 3 days later. And then 2 weeks later, I went to California and I shot 2 races back to back on the same weekend
Yeah.
and hiked 18 miles. And I call my coach. I'm like, I just did this and I feel pretty good. Yeah, my stitching kind of hurts,
Yeah.
but it's not like bad. And she's like, okay, well, do you think you can run a 22 miler the next week, which is 2 weeks out from Javelina? And so I was like, I don't really feel like I should go do it on my own. Do you mind if I just sign up for a 50K and do a hard effort to 22 and then walk it in? And so that's what I did. I ran Cave Creek Thriller and I ran the first 22 miles at a 13-minute pace. Felt great. Got to the aid station, and one of the guys that like went out really fast was like there puking his guts out. And I was like, and he's like, I've never DNF'd a race. I don't want to do it here. I was like, well, let's go. Let's walk this in. So like God provided me a hiking buddy basically. So we just walked it in. He threw up 2 more times in the last few miles, and we finished. And he did not get a DNF that day, so that was pretty special.
Awesome.
It took us like 9 hours, but we got it done.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, I turned it around, just felt better than ever, and ran my first official 100 miler in 28:59. And yeah, I was really happy about everything that I did in that month to get there.
Yeah.
And honestly, everything prior to the gallbladder surgery was like I put in the work, and I think it speaks volumes to coaching as well. My coach was Megan Cranfield, who's a 11-time Western States finisher and 10 times in top 10, and
Yeah.
she's 60 years old.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and so finding a great coach that can really work you through everything, it really helps.
Yeah. That's sweet, man. Yeah. I think it's cool that you've really like when you're out there shooting, like you know what they're going through. And whenever you're shooting, do you ever say anything to people as they go by you?
Yeah, I'm a little extroverted. I kind of extrovert all over people.
Oh yeah.
So, I'll give them the classic whoops and hollers as I see them off in the distance. But
Yeah.
sometimes I'll find a location. And I'm like, I just want them to be them and just go through this space. And like I had a reflection shot one time of people running across just a little plank bridge,
Yeah.
and I was backed up off the water, and so I was getting the reflection of them and them going through, and the water made it so they couldn't even hear the shutter. And and so it was like I just sat there for 3 hours, just let people pass through. And a couple people noticed me because they were actually paying attention to their surroundings, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of times I'll engage because especially early in a race, what you really are hoping people are feeling is smiles.
Yeah.
If I'm shooting a really long ultra, like it's okay. Like part of the story is looking terrible at mile 60 in a 100 miler. Like it's okay to have a low point and just contemplate life there in the chair. Um,
Yeah.
and but it's, did you get back up and did you go? And I don't care if that means like your loved one, your pacer, best friend, or it's just all you and you got up and you left. To me, that's huge, um, because it's truly like this symbol of life that we kind of don't really get to experience always in the daily, especially if you just have a comfortable job and you're in a comfortable home, and we don't get to be uncomfortable very often.
Yeah.
Um, and so to put yourself in a position where you're uncomfortable and you're pushing the boundaries, it honestly sets you up for so many other things in life to do that. And I see that as a huge accomplishment, and it takes being able to come out from those lows and get out of there. But as far as like, do I say things? Yeah. I'll use humor, especially early on in the course.
Yeah.
Um, and because it can actually get received.
Yeah.
And so, I like, I'm going to out my one thing that I say to a lot of people right now. It's like, a bunch of athletes out here.
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes we don't feel like it when we're in like little low moments, or if we're slower, it's like, I'm not being facetious about it, like, because we really are. And then I also tend to make the joke of like, is there like a 5K marathon going on out here? I
Oh
don't know if
yeah.
you've ever heard somebody that didn't know much about running, but they knew the name 5K and they knew the name marathon. And so that's always pretty well received. And it's like, yep, that's what's going on.
Oh yeah.
And they kind of jam along. I'm kind of a gear geek.
Okay.
So I like to point out like people's gear and ask them if they're liking their pack or this and
Yeah.
that. Um,
What kind of gear do you use?
um, Ultraspire is my favorite like pack right now.
Yeah.
They're incredible brand, incredible company as well. Their ethics are just amazing. And the owner of it, he actually um, he started um, oh gosh, Ultimate Direction
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Nathan. And so you can see a similarity in those packs, but with Ultraspire, with it being just him, he's
Yeah.
able to customize things and do things other people kind of get put in a box as far as what they can add to packs and things like that. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Ultraspire. Rabbit clothing brand, I think that their material is just top notch. Um, they're female-owned company and
Yeah.
out of California. The price is a little bit high, but the materials are just so good. Um, yeah, and then Vespa is my nutrition sponsor,
Okay.
and which is a high optimizing your fat metabolism kind of program. So he focuses on the fats in your diet and making sure that you're using that as fuel. And I'll tell you what, like once I found that, and when I'm working the program well, um, I don't get the heavy legs on
Yeah.
climbs, and that's pretty. That I don't know. I just always thought that that was a thing, like running cross
Yeah.
country in high
That's a
school.
big deal.
It was like, oh man, I just feel so heavy at mile 3, in a cross country race.
Yeah.
And to find out that it's just like I probably shouldn't eat Mongolian barbecue two times a week and Taco Bell,
Yeah. What
So
is it called that the nutrition called?
Vespa,
Vespa.
like the bikes.
Okay.
So Vespa is like a wasp.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
it has some wasp extract in it, and what that does is it helps your body break down fats and use it as fuel. And so my
Oh.
recovery as well is just amazing. And so that's where in the past I've been able to do some really big effort weeks
Yeah.
and just rinse and repeat and no days off style.
Yeah. I'm gonna
Yeah,
check some of that stuff out.
yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I can connect you with him, the owner.
Yeah, I'll make sure to link it down below for the listeners. So if they ever want to try it out themselves,
Yeah, for sure. Vespa is incredible. They're based out of California.
yeah,
Yeah, he's been he's been actually the pioneer behind the whole, um, like he's not the keto guy, he's not the Whole30 guy, but he has been doing that. He's been focused on this science well before any programs have been around. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, very very sciencey material that you can get out of Vespa
Oh
um,
yeah.
if you're really focused in on like the really nitty gritty. Jeff Browning is one of his athletes. He's a
Okay.
big spokesperson for it. So is Jesse Haynes, and there's several other Pete Mortmeyer,
Yeah.
Nick Corey. They're all using Vespa, and I know you had Zach Bitter on.
Yeah.
He's focused on that style nutrition,
Okay.
and he doesn't use Vespa, but he uses the science behind it all to
Gotcha.
run his races.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna get me some now that you're hyping it up. So it sounds pretty good.
yeah, for sure.
Hey, it's
I'll even send you some. I've got a little extra product
oh
I can
sweet
send you.
man. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are the big ones. Squirrel nut butter. I think that lubing up is really important in the races. Don't have chafing be your problem out there.
I will say I use squirrel's nut butter. I had this little pack of it for about a year and a half, and I didn't use it that much. I only wear it when I wear super short shorts because my legs they chafe really bad when I wear short shorts. And it over the course of a year and a half, it didn't dry out and it stayed good. And I used it for over a year and a half just here and there, and it worked out pretty well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good stuff.
Yeah, they definitely got a
They're
good
based out of
brand.
Flagstaff here in Arizona. The owner is actually Craig Thornley's brother. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so
Yeah,
there's an
that's awesome.
association there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Yeah,
He's in
Craig.
charge of the river crossing at Western States, Mile 78.
Oh,
So
okay.
he does the boats that you see
Yeah,
videos. Yeah,
that's cool to know. I didn't know that. It's pretty neat. And one
yeah,
thing I wanted to ask you about earlier is with your brand, Let's Wander Photography, and you as a photographer, where do you see yourself in the future? Do you see yourself doing this to till you're gray and old, or what are kind of your aspirations for the future of your career or even running?
yeah. So I think that my balancing line is I have a family of five, so
Yeah,
I've got three kids and a wife, and there's so I have a responsibility there
yeah,
financially to take care of them, and I built this giant, massive like clientele that is hopefully just going to stick with me for a long time.
yeah,
But I could see myself doing this for a decade longer. 20 years seems to be the cap for most of these event photographers. It's a lot of work.
yeah,
It's a lot of travel. It's a lot of editing. Um, and my my biggest hope is just leaving a mark within the community that you know I've gained some forever kind of friends out there in the trail community,
yeah,
and that's I want to be there for them. I Yeah, you'll be entertained by this. I always play around with, oh, well, what if I jump into something else? Like Luis Escobar, he's a race director as well as a photographer, as well as just a all-around entrepreneur.
yeah,
And it's like I look at him and it's like I've got years till I'm his age. And am I going to feel that way at that point? Like do I want to keep doing this to the point where it's like, oh, how do I step into race directing? Do I
yeah,
become a ham operator? I don't know.
yeah,
Am I just a forever volunteer at some point where I'm giving back in that kind of way? I'm not really sure where it's going to go, but as far as the community goes, I don't think that anyone out there can screw it up enough for me as far as like making me not want to be a part of the community. And for me, that's amazing because there's so many different communities where there's gaps in that where
yeah,
it's like all it takes is somebody having a bad experience, somebody showing up and feeling like they were looked down upon, mistreated, and people turn away. But with trail running, it's like it's the closest thing to church that I think there is apart from church,
Yeah.
where you go out there and it's like you're running next to sometimes even famous people, doctors, nurses, um, major business owners, uh, musicians, and
Yeah.
but then you can also work at Dutch Bros, and you can work at Whataburger,
Yeah.
and be out there and running ultras. And I've even met homeless people that somebody gave them the opportunity, like, here's some running clothes, here's a pack.
Awesome.
You're not doing anything. How about you come out on a trail run with me at 5 p.m. and like they show up because they don't have anything else going on.
Yeah.
And so, I think that that's the huge thing about running communities in general. In the road community, you see a lot of like somebody just going from being completely stagnant in their life and overweight or abusing substance. And then eventually they're running a 5K. And it's like, oh my gosh, like that was amazing. And then they do a 10K and half. There's the build up type runners that find it. And I think that says a lot about the community. And so, yeah, I could, I've rabbit trailed there. Your original question is, where do I see myself? I see myself continuing to invest in the community.
Yeah.
As a photographer or not, I'm open to either way. But I'm kind of in the same way some of these big runners are just riding the wave of having good years and good years and good years. I'm enjoying being a part of the community and putting a smile on some people's faces and creating memories,
Yeah.
helping helping document the memories that these people are putting out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. We've talked about and touched on it before, but like the community is really where it's at when you show up to a race and you meet all these people. When you see people or you meet other very unique individuals, it's a interesting thing, and I don't think you can ever get bored at a trail race
Mhm.
unless you're just in your head 60 miles into a 100 miler. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it definitely can get in our head out there,
Oh
especially
yeah.
on a big long climb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had any desires of doing other things in the trail running community? Like, have you had desires of race directing or just doing something else?
Yeah. Um, you know, there's two ways I kind of look at this, like what would be fun and then what would be monetary.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm doing is I'm working a job within my passion.
Yeah.
I would love to rep a brand, um, and especially if it's one that I want to get behind. And so being a field rep, I see it as being like an exciting job, um, and it pays decent. And but as far as like something that would be fun to give it a try, I think getting on the race direct side and like really experiencing the full spectrum of getting the parks permits and dialing in the cost of everything and making sure that the aid stations are all set, um, coming up with swag, things like that. I think that all sounds exciting to me as far as like a project. And I don't know if I could do it forever, but uh,
Yeah.
more power to you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can definitely be a lot. It just depends on how much you put on yourself, I guess. So, and one last question that I wanted to ask you about with your brand, Let's Wander Photography. What was it like building that brand and getting it to where it is now?
So yeah, I started in December of 2014. That's
Yeah.
when I shot the two races for free. And in 2015, I shot I think 22 races.
Yeah.
And with the pandemic, I had some low points and everything. But in 2018, I actually like was struggling with some depression, and that really kind of just took me down kind of an internalizing path. And coming out of that in 2019, was pretty special. 2018, I had a car break in, had some gear stolen,
Yeah.
and the community came behind me and raised a bunch of money really fast, and I was able to recover most of what I had lost.
That's awesome.
And in 2019, it was like, yeah, it was almost like I started realizing, it was like, yeah, of course we want to have you. Yeah, we want, you know, each race director was like, yeah, of course, like, so you're my boy. let's get out there, let's do this. And
Yeah.
so that was a huge boost for me. And then on top of that, just like everything in my personal life just kept getting better and better. And then 2020. In 2020, I was scheduled to run 3 major ultras,
Yeah.
and I was like, in February, I was in my prime, looking good, feeling great, and then everything happened in March, and I did the whole virtual run thing, and I did 30 days of 10 milers, and um, my whole life just over the past 8 years has just been this whirlwind of things
Yeah.
to get to where it is now. And I I would say that, like, the big driving force behind it all um, was strictly just a love for the sport.
Yeah.
My passion for the sport and the community is just huge. Like, I try my best to say hello and see the people that I know at every event. And it's just, I know not everybody has like a huge community of people around them. And so I feel blessed to have that. And I hope I never come off fake to someone, because
Yeah.
I realistically, seriously, even if you didn't see it, I probably cried for you as you finish your 100 mile. Like,
Yeah.
um, and it's because I see the magic in it. It's like when you see, if you get to go to a theme park like Disneyland, you see all the magic that you hear about, and you see all the artwork put into the buildings and the characters, and everything's just on point. Like, I get emotional at that kind of stuff. I'm probably the guy that would cry at a MasterCard commercial, because it's like,
Yeah.
it's so special. Like, what you just did is just so incredible. And even though I've been to a lot of races, every single time it still gets me, because it's like, you put in the work.
Yeah.
And I feel that way even with like a 10K, like, because a lot of 10Ks are road runners that have come to the trail,
Yeah.
and they'll be out there with their headphones on and in their own zone,
Yeah.
and they finish, and like, they're just like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. It's like, I know people can do harder, but yes, that was the hardest for you today. And it's awesome when you see those people just keep coming back and get into the community, because um, there's something about testing the limits.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, that's why I made the slogan for Texas Outlaw Break the Limits, because it's such a special thing. There's so much
Yeah,
wisdom that comes from it too.
yeah,
And it's very practical, and it could be applied to so many things in life as a metaphor. And
yeah.
so, yeah, it's some neat stuff. Definitely
Awesome.
is. And before we end the show, what's some advice that you would want to give the listener? Maybe a piece of wisdom, something that you've learned throughout your life that you would like to share with them, to help them.
Huh. You know, yeah, just, it sounds cheesy to say it, but I think that just leading with a caring heart, and love, but the biggest thing is caring, is huge. I think everybody can agree that if you care for people, good things will come your way, and hopefully for the people that you're looking at and care for.
Yeah,
And that's, yeah, that'd be my little piece of advice to everyone. And what's it's especially looking right now at the mosquito fire that's burning down the Western States course.
yeah,
My heart goes out to all those people. My father-in-law lives close to there and has been evacuated.
yeah,
His home is not in danger at the moment, but he can't go home. So what I would just say is like within our running community, like if you're passionate about something, um, just care for people. The people are what matter way more than the trail, way more than all the monetary things we have. And don't get too held up on that, because it's really easy to get wrapped up in this world and what it has to offer.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's good. I
Mhm.
appreciate you sharing. And yeah, right now in California, there's just a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Um, with the
Yeah, I
heat.
think we're over 70,000 acres on that fire, and
Yeah.
it's burned down about 20 miles of the course by
Wow.
Western States. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, prayers definitely go out to that area and those people. And it's just sad to see, but it just seems so often every year, every summer, and there's just so many fires, and it just seems more and more every year.
Yeah.
And
They
yeah,
have rain coming on and off the next 4 days. And so hopefully that helps the firefighters get ahead on some of this stuff.
yeah,
And, but it's only, I think it's like 22% contained. So
yeah,
it's just continuing to burn down more forest.
yeah. And it's beautiful out there too. Like that's a beautiful area over
Mm-hmm.
there. So yeah, but
Good deal.
well, I appreciate you coming on and
Mhm.
sharing about your life, your running journey, photography, just everything we covered. And I think it's going to bring a lot of value to a lot of people's lives. And I think at least one person will leave listening to this with something that they can apply to their life, which can have a big long-term effect, a positive long-term effect down the road. And so, yeah, I really appreciate you
Awesome.
coming on. And for those of you listening, if y'all want to follow him and all his stuff, it's all going to be linked down below. And yeah, all the info you need is down there. And yeah, you have anything else?
No, appreciate you having me on, and look forward to hearing this.
Oh, yeah. All right, y'all. That was Jesse Ellis. Thank y'all so much for listening. If you guys enjoyed the show, leave a rating down below. On whatever you're listening to, you can write a review of the podcast. So if you really enjoyed this episode or even the podcast as a whole, make sure you guys leave a review. And every Monday, we release a show called Shooting the Bull. And it's me and my buddy Asher, where we shoot the bull about life, fitness, and running all in one. And it's a really great episode. And then once a month on Saturday, one Saturday a month, we do the Texas Outlaw Running Talk Show, which is what you're listening to right now. So that's all of that. That's all I've got to say. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of y'all's day, or if it's night where you're at, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. And so I appreciate it, y'all, and thanks for tuning in.